Hello everyone, welcome to Tech with Robert to get started with the T-sql course. In the upcoming two lectures, in this and the next one, it's going to be dedicated to some tips and tricks. And in this lecture, I'm going to show you a little small trick to how you can find duplicates in a table. And so don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give a thumbs up on the video if you like what I do, to help me know what I do well and what you want me to improve on. Without further ado, let's just dive right in. So in this, I have a query here, I have a script here, and I'm going to link it in the description for you. But let's say that we have, because the reason why I want you to understand how to find and handle duplicate values is because oftentimes when there's a bug or an error in a query and you sort of need to debug a large query step by step, you will usually debug it from and take a join at a time. And sometimes you will find out that you run your query and then maybe the first two joins there's nothing wrong with them, but then on the third join you realize that you get more rows than from the actual base table that you have in your initial from statement, and that means that you have duplicate rows. And when you aggregate data or whatever you do with that data set, it's going to display incorrect numbers. So it's very important to understand the theory behind duplicate rows and how to find them, because that is essentially what you also will do when you're doing your join conditions and when you try to debug and find out if there is too many rows or not. Then you will use these techniques. So I'm going to start here we have a table here with, as we can see here, we have a lot of duplicate rows here. For example, we have Robert.Anderson with the same email, and this is just the exact same row 4 times, and here it's 2 times. These one are only displayed once, there's no duplicates here, but this one is a duplicate row and these two last are not. And so if we just simply select everything from that table, so we can say that we want to select everything from random, we can name it R, or we can say we want the random.first name, random.last name, and random email, like this, right? And we can say order by 1. And so when we run this query, we see here that we have a lot of duplicate rows. And when there are 2 or more, but at least 2 ways how we can find this out. And the first and the easiest is to using some of the things that we've learned in the previous lecture, which is the count aggregate function in combination with the having clause. And so let's assume here that we wanted to, in order to see, we have the first name, last name, and the email, and we want to first of all, we need to define what a duplicate is. So if we have, when we use this in a group by clause, we should only get one occurrence of these fields that we use together. So sort of like the same thing when we have a customer and then sum up the sales amount and we group it by the customer. So even though we have like Robert 100 sales, Robert 500 sales, Robert 300 sales, and so on, when we use it, when we summarize that sales amount and group it by the name, we would only get Robert once with the total sales amount for each row there. And when using the count star and combining these fields that should be unique, and you want to count the number of occurrences on, you can use the count function. It's the exact same theory. So if we just copy this query, we can say, we add another field and we say count star, okay, and we can name this number of occurrences. And what we now need to do is we need to group it by all of these 3 fields. since we have all of these 3 fields in the select class, we need to include all of these in the order by class here. Okay, so watch what happens now when we do this. We see here that, okay, the combination of James, Brady with this email, it only occurs once, and the same thing for this row and these rows. But notice what happens here. We see that the combination of Peterson with this email, it occurs 2 times, and for this one, robert.anderson with this email 4 times. And that is correct, because if you look here at what we inserted to the row, we see that we have 4 rows that have the exact same value, so 4 duplicate rows here. And so this combination here that we used in the group by class occurs 4 times. Okay, and so the reason why it's important to know this little trick here is because, let's say that you working with a query, and then, I mean, you get like a ticket, you know, a support ticket, and say, oh, the numbers, they are not correct here in this query. And then you start to debug the query to try and find what the problem is, and you find out that we have duplicate rows. And then, fine, the first step is to just say, okay, yes, I found out that we have duplicate rows, but then the next step would be you need to know how to get the rows, the duplicate rows, so you have something to send to the source system manager there, or the guy that is responsible for these for this data, you know, the source data. And you cannot go to him or her and say, oh, okay, you know, I found out, yeah, we have duplicate rows, and then he will probably tell you that, okay, but can you provide me a list with these duplicate rows so we can find out, and we can check in the source system to see, you know, to see what the problem is, and then we can decide on if we should fix this with the duplicate values in the database, or if we fix it on the source system side. And in a couple of future lectures, I'm going to explain how we can handle and delete duplicate rows manually here in the database. But for now, I just want you to understand that the count star and using the having clause is very important and a very good method to detect duplicate rows. Because if we add the having clause here, we can say, since these rows here, these first rows here, they only occur once, so they are not duplicate rows. So it's only the last 3 rows here that are duplicate rows. So we could say, once we've done this count star and got the number of occurrences, we can say having count star would be greater than 1, right? And so now we see here that, oh, okay, this is the, so if your boss were to say, okay, yeah, okay, we have duplicate rows, can you give me the list, and, you know, give me the information with those rows that are duplicates. And then this is how you would get that information. You would say, okay, so there's a guy named here, Peter.Peterson, he occurs 2 times, Richard.Henderson also occurs 2 times, and this guy robert.anderson here with this email, he occurs 4 times in the table. So we have him 4 times in the source system, you know, whatever. And so this is it for, I hope you guys understand now that it's a very good trick to use the count star in combination with the having count star greater than 1 to find duplicate values. In the next lecture, we're going to take a look at an example on how we can use this method to debug and get the information from a query where we have multiple joins and we see that we get multiple values, duplicates. We will use this method in a real example so we could see how good this trick is and how much it will help us to debug joins when we have more complex joins and more than one join in our queries. So I will see you guys in the next lecture.